Feminism and the Pursuit of Equality. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about a boy who grew up in a room without social connections to the world. And in this room, he learned a lot of things. But one of the things he learned was his colors. For example, he would say that this mug is black, and he would say that this mug is white. Now I know we might say that this mug is black and the other mug is white, but he was just taught his colors a little differently, just as we were taught our colors differently than he was. So what does this have to do with our society today? Well, everything today is not as it should be, but instead is just as it has been created to be. We tend to forget that just as our colors were created and there were names for them that we were taught one day, our whole society was created, and we have been taught to live in this society under the framework that has already been given to us. This is actually, there's a term for it, and it's called social construction. Social construction posits that humans created the social framework with which we live under today. This is a feminist concept, so a lot of people don't know about social construction because we tend to give feminism a bad name. So before I talk about social construction and how we can use this idea that the way the world is may not have always been the way the world was, we're going to take a step back and talk about feminism. One of my favorite feminists says, "Feminism is for everybody." She felt so strongly about this that she wrote a book, Feminism Is for Everybody. And in this book, she argues that feminism in the past has been seen as male-hating, but it's really just about equality. It's about fighting for everybody's rights. She says feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. So if feminism is just about equality, then what is equality? Equality is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, or opportunities. This comes from the Oxford Dictionary, but if we look at other definitions of equality, we always see that status, rights, opportunities, and everybody having and being equal in this society is what equality means. So feminism, in general, is just a word fighting for equality, and social construction is just helping to understand why we may not be equal. So in the pursuit of equality, you've seen that we can use ideas from feminism to help understand how we got here, like social construction. But we can also use terms from psychology to understand why we're still here. Why do we just accept the current social hierarchy? We know that we're not equal right now, but why do we continue to allow it to perpetuate anyway? These are 3 psychological phenomena that have maybe used in today's society to explain it, but have honestly taught me myself why I may have just been stuck in the current social hierarchy as well. Self-absorption. Ignorance and vanity. You see this girl in the picture, she's so stuck in her selfie that she can't see the outside world. Sometimes we're so stuck in our own lives that we tend to not look around us and see other people who may be calling out for help. Sometimes we're so high up in our phones and our technology that we don't see other cultures that may be oppressed because we're not within that culture. And that's totally understandable because we are all looking to better ourselves. But if we look around us, we may understand that other people are hurting, and if we continue to just focus on ourselves, we won't be able to ever pursue equality. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is just the phenomena that you go out into the world and you assume some things, and these assumptions may have been from a past knowledge, but when you go out and you assume these things, you don't tend to find new knowledge and go out to find new knowledge that could argue and say these beliefs are false. Instead, you go out and you want to confirm these beliefs. You want to continue believing what you've always believed, and you don't go out to seek knowledge that may be contradictory. A good example of this is feminism. Feminism, everybody says it's male-hating. So we don't talk about feminism. We don't talk about social construction because it's male-hating. But just as I've shown you, there's a lot of literature that will show you otherwise. The need to conform. We are scared of the unknown. Just as this picture shows, we like to be with people who look and think like we do. And if other people are different, we tend to push them away. And if we're different, we tend to push those ideas off too, because we don't want to look different. We'd like to look as if everybody else did. We'd like to be in the top course. We'd like to be in the top social hierarchy, because if we're at the top, then we don't feel different. We don't feel like we need to be scared or judged or any of that, because we can conform. So this need to conform is definitely biological. But who has defined what we have to conform to? This need to be normal. I like to think of Mean Girls. In Mean Girls, she always says, we wear pink on Wednesdays. Why do we wear pink on Wednesdays? Whoever said we needed to wear pink on Wednesdays? The popular girl, top of the social hierarchy, top of the social chain. And everybody else wanted to wear pink, because if we didn't wear pink, then oh my gosh, what would happen? We weren't popular. We were bullied. And it's the way it is. It's always been the way it is. But what if we change that? Who defines normal? In this scenario, the popular girl defined normal. What if she didn't? We all tend to believe that the social arrangements with which we are familiar are the social arrangements with which everyone else is also familiar with. So we go out into the world and we believe that the way that we see the world is the way that everybody else sees it. This is called the false consensus effect. We go out and we assume that everybody else is agreeing with us because they agree. But sometimes people agree because they're scared of disagreeing. They're scared of judgment. They're scared of being different, and they're scared of not conforming. Skin color, sexuality, gender. These are 3 labels that we tend to use in our daily lives. We don't really think about it, but they're always there. Skin color, black and white. It's only recently that we've started to see makeup companies go out of their way to include other colors. And Band-Aids, we still see Band-Aids. They generally aren't clear to match anybody's skin tone, but they're tan to match some people's skin tone. And slowly we see that as we grow, we tend to continue adding onto spectrums, but maybe we just can assume that everybody's on a spectrum. LGBTQ hasn't always been LGBTQ. At some point, there wasn't any LGBTQ at all, and now we have LGBTQIA+. What does that plus mean? That plus is a signal that everybody can decide their own labels. If we continued to add to LGBTQIA and then actually added more letters, we'd start to create more labels for people. And we really realize that some people, they don't fit into these labels. They don't fit into these categories, because instead of categories, we should just allow people to explain themselves, define themselves. Gender, male and female. For a very long time, this was another dichotomy that we had in our society. And only recently, we've started to see people who've decided that they don't want a gender, or that sometimes the gender that they have may not be the gender that they really feel suits them. But our social hierarchy and the social framework that we have today, it doesn't really give a space for them. We are only starting to create a space for them. And what we find is when we start adding words and pronouns like they and they, we start to have issues in grammar, because it was never made to have new pronouns that wouldn't consider gender. So I pose the question, what if we didn't have these labels at all? Ooh, technical difficulties. There we go. What if we didn't have these labels at all? What if these labels didn't exist? It's hard to consider a world where we don't have gender, because gender is part of our system. It's part of the pronouns we use and part of the social spheres we're in. But people are starting to question that. But there's really no part of our own society that we can look to see a world where gender doesn't exist. So why don't we look into other cultures? In the Yoruba culture, instead of having gender, they have a principle of seniority and priority. And this custom comes from a whole bunch of different rules that they have created. But at least in their system, people are considered seniors and juniors. And you are junior to some people who are older than you, and you are senior to other people who are younger than you. And it does get more complicated than that, but at the end of the day, you're always going to be in charge of somebody, and you're always going to be junior to somebody else. And you're sharing that responsibility. You're sharing that power instead of always somebody being on top. Labels matter because the beliefs we hold about others can hold them back in ways we don't expect. If we talk about self-fulfilling prophecies, we always say that if you believe something hard enough, it'll come true. So what if somebody tells you that you can't do something? It's not only the psychological pain that will cause a person if, let's say, a teacher tells a child that they can't do something, but it's also a lack of opportunities and privileges that that person will get. When I was in first grade, I got put into gifted. And what did I get in gifted? I got field trips, I got pizza, I got parties, but the other kids who weren't in gifted, they didn't get those things. I was told that I could do second grade work in first grade, and all the other kids, they were told that they had to continue doing first grade work because they couldn't even aspire to get to second grade work. And they didn't mean to make these different categories for children. They were just trying to make sure that everybody got the help they needed. But sometimes we tend to tell people that they can do things and that they can't do things, and we hold them back. What if that kid in first grade actually got moved to gifted? Like in second grade, when half the class got tested all of a sudden, and a whole bunch more people got added to my gifted program. So now all these people who weren't competing for second grade, or gifted, I guess, were all now put into gifted. And they started achieving just as much as I did. They weren't less than I was. They were just never given the opportunity to do as much as I was. So what can you do to make a difference? Continue to spread the word about social construction. Social construction, because it's a feminist concept, is not talked about enough. We don't talk about the way the world has been created. We just talk about, this is the way it is, so you gotta learn to live with it. Why should we live with it? Love yourself. I know that I'm talking about equality for everybody, but equality starts with loving yourself, with understanding your own contradictions. My boyfriend, he said the other day that he's pro-life and pro-choice, and that's a very hard thing to say sometimes because we always see pro-choice as something that can't also be with pro-life. But there are ways to talk about these problems where we're not going to stop somebody from being contradictory, because it's not being contradictory. There's just gray areas. People are so much more dynamic than we give them credit for. And we try to put them in these categories and labels that make it hard for people to talk about their contradictions. So if you're confident in what you believe in, then you can go out into the world and explain it. Work to understand the other. Sometimes people are different than us. And honestly, everybody's different than us. Even if they look the same, they still have different beliefs. Even if they dress the same, they still might have a different hair color, skin color. Everybody's different, but if we go out and we work to understand the other, and we walk outside of confirmation, and we stop conforming, instead just start understanding, we'll go a lot farther in life. Challenge yourself to treat everyone with respect. And when I say everyone, I do mean everyone. I mean that homeless person that you crossed along the street when you were walking. Sometimes we tend to think that everyone doesn't mean everyone, and everyone is only the people that look and dress like us. But we don't know other people's situations. We don't know where they come from. We don't know where they've been. And we don't know where they're going because we haven't stopped to ask. So challenge yourself to treat everyone with respect so that you can understand their stories. Don't judge somebody who is homeless and say that they're an alcoholic or that they're addicted to drugs, because studies show that after 6 months of unemployment, it's even harder to get another job. So somebody may be trying and out there on the street trying to get a job every single day, and we have already labeled them as lazy. Take a step back, and before you make that label, just ask yourself, are they a person? Then they probably deserve the same respect as you do. And continue the journey. My own pursuit in equality has brought me to feminism. It's brought me to understanding social construction, but your pursuit of equality might be different. Go out into the world and take your own pursuit. Take your own journey into equality. Learn about feminism. Give it a chance. Read Feminism Is for Everybody, actually. It's free online. Bell Hooks is sweet enough to give everybody a free PDF if you look for it. And she's done that because she believes that feminism truly is for everybody, that this idea can actually create a better tomorrow. With that, I'd like to leave you with a thought, and then one last quote. Our founding fathers wrote in the Constitution, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal." Although today we usually say all people are created equal. When we say all people are created equal, we tend to erase the history that got us here. We tend to erase the fact that our founding fathers were white and male, and that they were the ones who were given the vote first before females and blacks. And when we forget that history, we forget that just because today females and males have the vote, there's still so much more to be fought for. There's still so much more to equality, and that under the framework that we have right now, we may never get there. If we still think under skin color and sexuality and gender, we may never get there because these labels continue to leave somebody out of the picture. Up there on the screen, we can all fly, but down here on Earth, we need to be each other's wings. This is from one of my favorite actors. And he just tends to say, you know, on the screen, people can be superheroes. But on Earth, we need to be each other's superheroes. With that, I'd like to leave you with continue your own pursuit of equality and continue the journey. Thank you.